You ever get that feeling that you're searching for something, but you don't even know what the question is? Well, that feeling, that's right at the heart of existentialism. Now, I know, it sounds like some heavy, super academic topic, right? But it's not. It's actually a philosophy for real people and real lives. So let's demystify it together.
I mean, come on, who hasn't stared at the ceiling at 2 a.m. asking, what is the point of all this? Or what am I even supposed to be doing with my life? If you've asked those questions, congratulations, you've already had your first brush with existentialist thought. It's all about that deep human need to find some meaning in a world that, let's be honest, doesn't seem to be handing out any easy answers.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to do it in 5 parts. First, we'll get a real clear definition of what we're even talking about. Then, we'll dig into the big problem that really kicked this whole thing off. After that, we'll look at the, let's call them the uncomfortable feelings that come with it. But then, and this is the good part, we get to the powerful solution, and finally, the ultimate goal of it all.
All right, section 1. What in the world is existentialism? There's a great quote that calls it a philosophy that makes life possible. Wow. That is a huge claim, right? So let's see what's actually behind a statement that bold.
So, at its core, existentialism isn't some dusty theory meant for a library. Nope, it's a direct response to a very human problem. We are creatures who are just desperate for meaning. But we're living in a time and place where all the old stories, the old rule books that used to give us that meaning, have started to fall apart.
So this falling apart of meaning, where did that come from? Well, that brings us to this really famous and frankly widely misunderstood idea from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He called it the death of God. And trust me, getting a handle on this one idea is the key that unlocks everything else.
You know, when Nietzsche wrote, "We have killed him, you and I," he wasn't trying to be edgy, and he wasn't, celebrating some kind of victory over belief. He was pointing something out. He was an observer, and he was describing a massive cultural earthquake that he saw happening all around him.
And here is the absolute most important part to understand. The death of God wasn't just about the decline of organized religion. It was a metaphor. It was about the collapse of any single overarching system that we used to rely on for all the answers. Think about it. Whether it was religion or a blind faith in science or the idea of inevitable human progress, these were all like blueprints for how to live. And Nietzsche's point was, those blueprints are fate.
So, what happens when the blueprints are gone? How are we left feeling? Well, this is where we get into the emotional side of existentialism, the stuff you probably think of when you hear the word. The angst, the dread, all that fun stuff. Now, it is so easy to think that existentialism is just depressing. But that's missing the entire point. Facing these tough feelings isn't the destination, it's the starting line. When our deep need for meaning slams into a silent universe, that's what philosophers call the absurd. And yeah, that can make you feel like a stranger in your own life. That's alienation. It can create this low-level hum of anxiety, and it can lead to this profound loneliness or forlornness when you realize you're on your own. But acknowledging this is exactly where things start to get really, really interesting.
Okay, here we go. This is the big pivot. This is the turning point. We've looked at the problem, we've sat with the uncomfortable feelings, and now we're shifting to the solution, and it's a wild one, summed up in this incredible phrase, condemned to be free.
The master key that unlocks this whole idea is the little phrase from Jean-Paul Sartre. He said, "Existence precedes essence." I know, it sounds a little academic, but stick with me, because it is one of the most simple and most revolutionary ideas you'll ever hear.
Let me break it down. Think about a watch. A watchmaker decides its purpose, its essence, long before it's ever actually built. Its whole reason for being is to tell time. Essence comes first. But for a human being, existentialists say it's the exact opposite. You're just born. You exist. That's step one. There's no pre-written purpose. You are the one who has to define your own essence, your own purpose, through every single choice you make and every action you take.
And that is why Sartre says we are condemned to be free. Why condemned? Sounds terrible, right? It's because you can't get out of it. You have no choice but to be free. There's no divine plan to fall back on, no user's manual for your life. You are completely and totally free, which means you are completely and totally responsible for the person you become. It's a heavy, staggering thought.
So, if we're that free and we're totally responsible for creating our own meaning, what's the goal? What are we supposed to be aiming for? Well, that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the quest for what existentialists call authenticity.
And listen,
This isn't authenticity in the way we usually use it, like just be yourself. It's so much deeper than that. It's about having the courage to look our situation square in the face, to accept the absurdity, to embrace that radical freedom, and then to take full ownership of the life and the self that we are creating, choice by choice.
And really, this is the whole thing, the big takeaway. In a universe that doesn't come with built-in meaning, we're not left empty-handed. Not at all. Instead, we're handed this incredible, kind of terrifying, but also totally exhilarating job. We get to be the creators of our own meaning. We get to decide what matters.
And that's the beautiful, maddening thing about it. Existentialism doesn't give you a neat little package of answers. It just gives you the freedom. It hands you the keys to your own life, points to the open road, and then it just asks you one simple question. Now that you're free, what are you going to choose?